Hi guys, sorry about that last video. This video is going to have a lot better camera work and better explanation too because I've been through it once now. Um, I'd certainly like to make videos that are more watchable and get to the point faster and don't have as much boring blabbing and stuff. So I'm working on that, bear with me. Today, we're going to be talking about Ion Industries, Mrs.Smiths Frozen Foods Company here on the Fairview Park Terminal Railroad. Some of you may be wondering, you have a lot of Conrail rolling stock, and I have a lot of Conrail power. Why is that? Well, the way it works is the Fairview Park Terminal Railroad is me. I am the railroad. And Conrail leases the line from us. That's how this works. So that I think that's pretty explanatory. Right now, and it won't be this way for forever, but right now, the biggest shipper on the line is Mrs.Smiths Frozen Foods Company. And Mrs. Smith at this factory, plant number 002, is owned by a parent company called Consolidated Frozen Foods Company. And they manufacture Mrs. Smith's pies, Mega Pizza, and Edwards dessert pies. And you might be saying, well, Mike, isn't Mega Pizza over there, right there? Let's look. Oh, there's some trucks that say Mega Pizza on them. See, let's see. Yep, right over there. And you would be right. This is Mega Pizza's restaurant supply chain operations. This is a frozen foods plant, and that Mega Pizza is their at-home frozen foods brand. Mrs. Smith has license to use Mega Pizza's trademark and branding and stuff on their pizzas because, you know, Mrs. Smith's Frozen Pizza doesn't really sound good. But Mega Pizza at home, and that's actually how it's branded in the supermarkets in Plasticville, are Mega Pizza at home. So that's the difference. That's the at-home frozen pizza line, like think DiGiorno or Red Baron, anything that you would pick up in your grocery freezer aisle. So what we've got going on here today is here's our frozen foods plant. The frozen foods plant, when it's operating, is going to be a 24/7 operation, and we have a couple different buildings here. We have this building, which is the ingredient processing building. That's where they make the pizza sauce, the pizza dough, any kind of dessert filling, that kind of thing. Then we have this building, which is the receiving and shipping and packaging building. We shuttle ingredients between the two buildings using these 28-foot trailers. One's getting loaded at one, one's unloaded at the other. That's how we do it. I have here what's called an industry report. Consolidated Frozen Food Industry, Chicago, Illinois, plant number 2, Mrs. Smiths Frozen Foods, Central City, Ohio. This says who all the customers are. So it's their customer list, how many stores the customers have, and whether they can receive by rail or truck. See, there's more customers. And then we have our transportation vendors. So, Seaboard Coastline Railroad, Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, Consolidated Rail Corp, Burlington Northern. And then Mrs. Smith's Transport, which is these guys here. It talks about where they go to, so who they all deliver to. And then Jones Trucking, which are these two guys here. We talk about who they deliver to, who they can deliver to, and what they use them for. And then, of course, we talk about the railroad, what the railroad's role in this, and when the time to use the railroad would be versus when the time to use truck shipment would be. And we're going to talk about the difference between all these trucks too. These are the backhaul list for Mrs. Smiths. You got Ecolab, Mott's Juice, Nelson James. They supply cleaning supplies to the food manufacturing industry. Archer Daniels, Midland, Pillsbury, Apple Fruit Company, Spice Company, International Paper, Plastic Film, Plastic Pack, that kind of thing. Then we have a list of what kind of railroad cars they would get for receiving. Covered hopper cars, those could have salt, sugar, flour, cornmeal, yeast, pepper, nuts. Refrigerated box cars would have cheese, butter, apples, cherries, chocolate, lemons, cream cheese, limes, frozen vegetables, frozen fruits, but probably frozen vegetables for making pizza. Tank car, tomato puree, ground tomatoes, corn syrup, and then box car, pizza sauce, evaporated milk, consumer packaging boxes, pie pans, and then shipping boxes. And there's probably others too, but those are the big things. Then we have the production line output. So that's their numbers that they do. So the Mrs. Smiths line, which is the fruit pies, they make 95,000 a day. The pizzas, they make 95,000 a day. The dessert pies, they make 95,000 a day. And then here's the production schedule. Mrs. Smiths, on Monday, they're making apple, Tuesday Dutch apple, Wednesday pumpkin, Thursday cherry, Friday peach. Saturday open, Sunday open. Then mega pizza, Monday pepperoni, Tuesday meat lovers, Wednesday veggie. Thursday pepperoni and sausage, Friday cheese, Saturday stuffed crust and with pepperoni, and then Sunday stuffed crust with deluxe. And then Edwards desserts, cheesecake on Monday, chocolate whipped cream pie on Tuesday, Wednesday lemon, Thursday key lime pie, Friday strawberry, Saturday pecan, and Sunday open. Anytime it says open, what that means is if there's a production line snafu during the week, then they can run that particular product that they had shortfall on those open days. So, here's a question. When do they know whether to ship by rail or to ship by truck? And what's the difference between all these trucks here? Now, you could say, well, size is the difference for one. I mean, you've got, you're going from smallest to largest. And you're right. For the most part, that's true. However, it's a little more complicated than just, well, bigger trailer, we can shove more in. There's weight limit restrictions. In trucks, you can only weigh 80,000 pounds. That's the restriction. The train, these box cars, these refrigerator cars, can carry 130,000 pound payload. That's what it says on the box car. Well, that's a lot more than what the trucks can do. So, to assess our industry's transportation needs, we have to look and see how much product is being moved, and look at how much product is being moved, and determine what the right, also delivery times and things of that nature. So, what are we shipping? We're shipping frozen foods product. So, one pallet has 160 cases. A case has 6 consumer packaged pies in it. So each case weighs 15 pounds. 160 cases at 15 pounds equals 2,400 pounds. So one pallet weighs 2,400 pounds. A 40-foot semi-trailer, which is this one right here, if we go through our chart, can handle 15 pallets at 36,000 pounds max load weight. A 45-foot semi-trailer, which is this one right here, I'm not sure where I got this math at. I think the number is actually 17, but it can do 17 pallets. That would get it 38,400 pounds. Then a 48-foot semi-trailer, which is this one right here. In this scenario and in my world, we don't have 53-foot trailers. We have 48 is as big as we go. The 40-footers are intermodal trailers, same with the 45ers. Some of this grounds transportation stuff, though, just depends on what's available at the time for transportation, too, and when it needs to be shipped. So, 48-foot semi-trailer can handle 18 pallets. That weighs 43,200 pounds max lading. So this truck can handle 18. Essentially, the 40-foot trailer can handle 15, 17, 18, 19. But about the 45-foot's kind of the in-betweener. But the 48-foot is 43,200. That would be the max lading on that one. That would get you 80,000 pounds without being overweight. Now, let's talk that. So that's what the trucks can handle. Well, let's get into the smaller trucks too. A set of doubles, set of 28-foot doubles, like right there. It says that it can handle 28,000 pounds max growth. Technically, that's overweight. 28,000 pounds would be overweight. The tear weight on those trailers is heavy. Those trailers can really, in real life, currently right now, without being overweight. Now, it depends on the trailer manufacturer and that kind of thing. But generally speaking, in generality, a set of refrigerated food service doubles, the max lading without being overweight is like 16 grand payload in each trailer. Less than truckload dry van doubles, 24 in the lead, 20 in the back. You're about, that's pushing it. That's about as much as you can do with doubles without being overweight. These trailers are just used to shuttle at the plant. The plant here does not run doubles. Although doubles are the only way in this scenario to get 53 feet with a trailer space. So that and actually years ago, before 53-foot trailers were the norm in I think about the 1980s, the late 80s, before 53-foot trailers were legal. To get more trailer space, you had to pull doubles. And there were some companies that did. 26-foot box truck, which is this guy right here. He can handle, in this shipping scenario, he can handle 24,000 pounds. Probably fit about 10 pallets in. Legally, he can do more. He's got tandem axles in the back. He could probably get 32,000 pounds in him. Because you could have 32,000 pounds on tandem axles. But the cube, he's going to cube out before he's going to weigh out. And then if we were to ship with a straight truck, like your local delivery straight truck, they could do 20 grand, 8 pallets for a 20-foot box truck like this, 8 pallets, 19,200 pounds. Because you've only got one axle in the back, 20,000 pounds over that axle. Remember this, you're only allowed 12,000 pounds on the steers. and then $32,000 over the tandems. So here's a question. What does it cost to ship all this stuff? No one talks about that. What does it cost to ship all this stuff? I don't have the real rates. Well, I mean, I wouldn't. How could I get that? But I can make something up in my mind from what I know that I think is correct. So the way I do this is I have weight calculated by ton miles. So the cost to ship by truck in this scenario is 13 cents per ton mile. So Mrs. Smiths faxes a load over to Jones Trucking. Jones Trucking is going to bill them 13 cents per ton mile. That means they load up the truck with 1 ton of freight and run it down the road 1 mile. They charge Mrs. Smiths 13 cents. The railroad, these guys, charge 11 cents per ton mile. Same concept. Hey guys, I'm back. Had a phone call and the dog wanted to go out and that kind of thing. I don't have a dog, but we're watching one for a little while longer, although he's checking out today. So that's it. All right, so let's talk turkey. What does it cost to ship via truck, via rail? So when we left off to ship by truck, the price was 13 cents a ton mile. To ship by rail, in this scenario, the way I'm doing it, the price is 11 cents a ton mile. We know that the maximum lading on a truck, if we're going to go head to head, a 48-foot trailer, which is this one right here, can handle 43,200 pounds. So, and a box car here, according to it, I think it's max, what did it say? It's like 130,000 pound capacity. That's what we're calling it. So, that's 65 tons. 130,000 pounds is about 65 tons. So, let's do some math here. So, let's do some math here. So, to ship via rail car, 130,000 pounds max lading. That's 54 skids of frozen foods product. That's by rail car. Cost to ship by truck, 13 cents per ton mile. Cost to ship by rail, 11 cents. So, example, 130,000 pounds of product is one refrigerator car to ship 2,000 miles. So, we take 130,000, divide that by 2,000 pounds in a ton, we get 65 tons. We take our 65 tons, we multiply that by 11 cents. That means they're charging us $7.15 a mile. In this case, X is how many miles we need to go. In this case, we need to go 2,000 miles. So the equation is this: cost per mile times the shipping miles. So cost per mile times the shipping mile equals X is our final shipping cost. So 65 tons times 11 cents, we know that gets us $7.15 per ton mile. So $7.15 per ton mile, we're going to send it 2,000 miles down the railroad. $14,300 to ship one refrigerator car 2,000 miles by rail. All right, so then what does that cost to do money-wise for the trucks? Well, that same shipment, 65 tons, first we need to calculate how many loads we're going to need. We can't carry 65 tons in a truck. The truck doesn't even have the pallet capacity for that. Forget weight. 54 pallets, you can't even fit in a 48-foot trailer. You can only do 24 at the most. So how many truckloads do we need? So we need to calculate how many truckloads that is. So we have, in this case, we have a 48-foot semi-trailer. A 48-foot semi-trailer can handle 18 pallets at 43,200 pounds. This is 21.6 tons. That's max weight to be legal. So 65-ton shipment is calculated as follows. Total tonnage divided by trailer size payload capacity equals X, how many trucks we need. So we're going to take 65, divide that by, we're using 48-foot trailer math here, 21.6 equals 3 truckloads. 13 cents per mile times 65 tons equals $8.45 per mile by truck. $8.45 a mile times 2,000 miles is $16,900, approximately $5,633 per load. So it would take 3 truckloads to handle 1 boxcar load, 1 refrigerator car load. And that would be right. That would be right. That math works, because I've always heard that 1 rail car, boxcar, refrigerator car, whatever, is worth the equivalent of 3 semi-truckloads. Now, you would say, well, then, Michael, why wouldn't they ship rail all the time? Well, yes and no. The problem with the railroad is this. The railroad is slow. You have to, in this case, you have to have your own you have to have your own line so the plant can load the boxcar. Then you got to call the railroad to have it picked up. Then they have to take it to the yard. And then it's got to get shipped out, put on another train and shipped out. And then it goes through the whole thing. It's slow. A truck shows up. They pull a trailer out of the yard, push it in a door, load it up, driver shows up. It's boogieing down the road. Your railroad car gets loaded, and then it goes and sits on the siding for a day. Well, maybe not that long, but until the railroad can get to it. Meanwhile, that truck's already been driving for 5, 6, 7 hours. It's halfway there. And this thing hasn't even moved yet. Now, at Mrs. Smith's, the way I have this set up to run in this scenario is that GP35 over there, that's still in the box, Mrs. Smith's leases that from Conrail. Oh, there's the superintendent. And they have their own engineers and conductors that work around the clock. And Mrs. Smith has authority. They call for authority and track warrants, or however that works. And they get the authority to run the line down here as they need. Because this is just an industrial switching branch spur, it's not a main line, so the railroad says, that's fine. Plus, it saves the railroad from having to switch out, and it saves Mrs. Smith from having to pay switching fees. Plus, they can then run their own if they have to, they can run their freight up to the train yard itself and hand it off to the railroad. And if the railroad gets in a bind, they can ask Mrs. Smith's to switch out the other 2 industries, their neighbors. Although generally speaking, that won't happen too much. Another thing I do is these American refrigerator transit codes. Mrs. Smith uses them as a vendor. They lease refrigerator cars from them. And the reason they do that is to not get bogged down with having to pay demurrage and other fees for using the railroad's cars. So they have their own locomotive and their own engineers. And they lease refrigerator cars from American Refrigerator Transit. That way those cars get loaded up with Mrs. Smith's stuff. Then they send them to wherever they need to go. And then a rail freight broker finds a backhaul for them, or maybe they don't, and they get them back to Mrs. Smiths as quickly as possible. I'm not sure what he's doing. So that's how it works. Mrs. Smiths has its own internal railroad here in this scenario. They have because when this plant's running, this is 24/7. And they don't have time to be, to waste on, they can't wait for the railroad. They have to go. So that's how that works. More in a minute. Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that. As I was saying, so the railroad's a little bit cheaper, but the advantages to the rail are you have essentially unlimited capacity. You're not really, weight restrictions not really a thing. Just put on another rail car if you have that much to ship. And we can, you have unlimited capacity, so to speak. But it's slow. There's fees associated with it. The truck, you can't ship as much, but it's a lot faster. It's more flexible. Certainly for local shipments and short shipments, the railroad really doesn't do local and short stuff well. So trucks are the only way to go. I mean, you're not going to ship something across town by rail. They're too slow for that. It's easier to throw it on a truck and drive it across town and be done with it in an hour. The railroad would take an hour to do what a truck can do. It would take all day. The railroad would take all day to do what the trucks can do in an hour. But to ship a big, heavy shipment and a lot of something a far distance, in this case, I would say 600 miles or more, then the railroad certainly makes a lot more sense. Now, the railroad might make sense if you're going maybe for a short haul, but you have a lot of something. The railroad's very good if you have a lot of something heavy. They're really good. But if you have just a one-off thing or a smaller shipment, they're not as good. Trucks, you do have more flexibility. You can load a truck up, even if the truck driver himself runs out of hours that he can drive, depending on where he is and the time on the load and who's available. You can always shuttle a trailer out to him, unhook trailers. He can hook a load that's got more time, and they can hook to that trailer and keep it moving. You can relay stuff pretty easy with a truck. So there are advantages. So the truck is a little more flexible. It's faster. It's more flexible. Loading and unloading aren't as big of a deal. It just backs up to a dock. Heck, you can load off the street. They have a tow motor or something in a pallet jack. You can roll a pallet to the back of the trailer. A guy in a tow motor can take it down. You don't even need a loading dock. I suppose you could do that with a rail car too, but it's probably less common. Trucks, that's actually not as uncommon as you think. There's places like the Cuyahoga County Jail that really don't have a loading dock, and big semi trucks go there. They just open up the back doors, and the jail, they come out with a tow motor and they just unload everything. So that's kind of the advantage. That's the advantages of the truck. And the advantage of the train is it can haul more. You have better capacity with the train. It's a little bit cheaper. You have better capacity. The truck, a little more expensive, but you have better flexibility and better transit times and better speeds. And it's easier to use. I know currently right now, depending on who you are, the railroads can be very customer hostile to deal with. There's a lot of customers they don't like. There's a lot of service they don't want to do. They can be very customer hostile. The way the railroad works down here is intermodal's not as big of a thing in this era that I'm modeling, so the railroads are trying to be a little more my railroad tries to be a little more customer service oriented. In the 21st century, I don't know that that's always the case. I think with some customers, they can be customer service oriented, but I think with other customers, the railroad is not as customer service oriented. The trucking companies have a lot of competition. Some I'm sure are better than others. But some of them are more customer service oriented. Plus, you don't really get into, you know, I don't know of it to happen. It's always been argued that in the truck industry, oh, detention pay and this and that, drivers show up to shippers and sit there for forever. The railroad, they charge demurrage on cars, meaning that's, you don't unload that car and it's sitting on your siding for, a day, they start charging you money. The trucking companies, for a long time, a driver would show up and sit in line and you'd wait there all day and they just, well, nothing we're going to do. Don't want to make the customer mad. No one else is charging detention, so if we charge them, they just won't ship with us. We drop trailers there, fine, whatever. That's what we do, and they can tie up our trailers for as long as they want, and that's just how it goes. The trucking companies, to my knowledge, don't really charge. If you drop off an empty trailer there to be loaded and pick up a full one to be taken out, they don't. As far as I know, they don't really charge the shipper money for every hour that trailer is sitting there on that lot. They're just happy to have the business. So that's kind of the difference. The company, well, it's okay, the railroad's cheaper, but they like to fee us for switching and fee us for using their cars and fee us for this and fee us for that. Where the trucking company doesn't do that. Not typically. So and then, the railroads only want big, they can be slow and they only want big, huge loads, where the trucking companies, pretty much take anything. So a lot of industries say it's easier to deal with the trucking companies. Are they perfect? No. But most of the time our stuff gets there. More times than not. So that's how we're going to do this. And it must be true, because a lot of places use trucks. And I know with precision scheduled railroading and things, a lot of the railroad got rid of a lot of these onesie, twosie car customers. And then even other customers, they don't want to bother spotting anymore, doing any work with. So, maybe a short line takes it, maybe it doesn't. But then the Class 1 railroad doesn't want to give anything to the short lines either, unless the short line's willing to do a lot of work that they don't want to do. And that gets into a whole thing. I'm not an authority on that. There's a guy named Killer B. He talks about all that kind of thing. He's much more knowledgeable than me on that. So but for this case, for Mrs. Smiths, and then this scenario, that's how it works, and that's the pricing guide, and that's the pricing formula. So if any of you, anything you wanted to ever interested in actually what it costs and how the money is made, that's what it costs. That's the pricing formula. So I'm going to go upload this video now. I hope this was more watchable. I'm going to try to edit all these together. You guys have a lovely Saturday, and I'll talk to you again real soon. See you guys later. Bye-bye.